Huawei's Nova 2i impresses a lot when it comes to features for a smartphone that costs below 1,300 ringgit. The phone actually caused a number of new smartphone releases that competes around its price range, and here we have one of them, the Oppo F5, a smartphone that sports artificial intelligence in beautifying your selfies, and it is slightly cheaper than the Nova 2i. So, which is the better smartphone? Let's find out. To be very honest, I'm not a fan of both smartphone designs, but if I were to choose between the two, then Huawei's Nova 2i is something that would attract me over the Oppo F5 on first impressions. Even when it comes to aesthetics, the Nova 2i feels more comfortable to hold than the latter with tapered edges and smoother corners. Apart from trying to look too much like an extended version of an iPhone 8, the Oppo F5 has very sharp corners on the sides of the display, and it feels like as if you can cut your fingers if you run through it. I don't know whether I should call this a design flaw or not, but I have to say this is the worst smartphone design I've ever seen from the company. Specs wise, both phones are pretty close in the performance department. The MediaTek P23 processor on the F5 is a pretty efficient silicon, even though it doesn't have a dedicated set of performance and efficient cores like the Kirin 659. However, it loses out to the Nova 2i when it comes to storage. The Nova 2i has 64 gigs of internal storage, which can also be expanded with a micro SD card. And speaking of expandability, this is where the F5 comes with a better feature. A 3-in-1 SIM tray that lets you use 2 SIM cards and expand storage at the same time. Both smartphone displays aren't too bright when using outdoors, and they are generally on par when it comes to color reproduction. They both sport the 18:9 aspect ratio with a 2160x1080 resolution, which has pretty much become a standard on smartphones these days for a better viewing experience and handling of the device. I prefer the mono speaker of the Oppo F5 as it can get really loud without too much distortion, while the Nova 2i speaker isn't one you're going to enjoy listening to music playback. Both smartphones are still running Android Nougat with their own proprietary launchers, which is still fine if you aren't the geek type of person. Huawei's EMUI offers the very same experience that you will come across on other Huawei devices, and I have been really liking it. Though it is still nowhere near as stock Android, but it does offer some useful features, such as the choice to switch between an all-app home screen or with an app drawer, using your knuckles to do a screenshot or splitting apps, and a software machine learning algorithm feature built in to ensure the experience doesn't slow down after some time. You can't go wrong with Huawei software as it maintains a rather consistent user experience if you're coming from other Android smartphones. The Oppo F5 on the other hand, well, I kid you not, has one of the worst if not the worst software I've ever come across on an Android smartphone. Even though I didn't encounter much performance issues, I hate the fact that it is so difficult to manage the home screen and how much it tries to resemble iOS in terms of usability. The settings page can also be confusing as well, as some items are hidden in different sub-menus. It requires some learning curve if you are coming from other Android smartphones, which is fine if you can learn to get used to it, but I would advise replacing the launcher with a third-party one. In terms of security features, both the Nova 2i and Oppo F5 sports very reliable fingerprint scanners at the back. However, the F5 offers an extra layer of security with facial unlock, which works great if you are in a room with good lighting. But don't expect it to work properly in a dark cinema hall, since it merely uses the front camera to do so without dedicated sensors. When it comes to the camera department, the Nova 2i comes with a secondary camera on the front and back that mainly assists the main camera in measuring depth of field, so that you can take portraits and selfies with a more accurate blurred background. The Nova 2i will take 16MP stills on the rear and 30MP stills on the front. Both cameras feature an f2.2 aperture. The Oppo F5 takes on the Nova 2i with a 20MP front camera and a 16MP main camera with a f1.8 aperture. Now, this is where the Oppo F5 begins to show its potential. The main camera of the phone takes better pictures with a more balanced and accurate exposure and sharper detail. The Nova 2i's camera tends to overexpose pictures and doesn't do as well as the Oppo F5 in low light when it comes to noise level and detail. As for the front camera, the Oppo F5 is truly the champ as it really has a more natural facial beautifying process. Not to forget to mention, the portrait mode seems to be on par with the Nova 2i despite lacking a secondary camera sensor. While it is disappointing that both the Nova 2i and Oppo F5 doesn't come with fast charging, they They tend to hold up pretty well in battery life and can definitely go on for a full working day with lots of social media browsing and texting. Both phones aren't great in gaming performance, but the Nova 2i's GPU is able to produce smoother frame rates due to its higher clock speed. The Oppo F5 can get really hot after gaming for some time. In terms of wireless connectivity, the Nova 2i doesn't support connecting to 5 GHz Wi-Fi networks, while the F5 can do so despite only at 802.11n speeds. Both phones have generally decent call quality and GPS performance in my tests. Overall, I really think both the Nova 2i and Oppo F5 are great smartphones for what they are priced at. Though the Nova 2i seems to be the better deal with more internal storage, the Oppo F5 has one of the best camera systems as opposed to the rest of the competition, even though it doesn't have 2 lenses on the front and back. So it depends whether you want a smartphone with great overall features or one that is great in photography for that budget. Alright, let me know your thoughts about this comparison in the comments, whether you agree or disagree, love it or hate it, share this video and give us a thumbs up if you like this video, and be sure to subscribe and click that bell icon next to it to be notified of new video uploads. And I'll talk to you in the next one.